Welcome to week 7. Now I know there's a tendency at this part of the program to start looking at the finish line, but I need for you to focus because we got some important things to do this week. Things that will help wrap up the course in a successful way. We're going to go overseas. We're going to look around the world at the international communication ethics. If you'll look at chapter 10 of our text, you'll learn that what all the ethical principles that we discuss boils down to is a matter of trust. It is impossible for any organization to be perceived as ethical without a sense of trust. And I agree with our authors that trust is the key element for all things ethical, all things business, period. Your authors talk about the Code of Ethics, or the Code of Conduct of the International Public Relations Association. And they note that this was originally published in Venice in 1961. And some critics have said, it's been decades. Perhaps there needs to be a change. But your authors say that the fact that it's lasted this long, perhaps that test of time might be one of its strengths. And there's some value to that. There are other codes of ethics internationally that you might be able to find as well that have kind of updated some of the tactics involved in terms of ethics and how those ethics relate to different communication tactics for strategic communication. I will tell you that IPRA, or the International Public Relations Association Code of Conduct, has been adopted by members in more than 100 countries around the world. So that tells you how pervasive that code of conduct is. And your authors spend a little bit of time describing that and its applicability to our discussion this week in terms of international communication ethics. One additional reading this week in Taylor and Yang, 2014. This article talks about their research that explores if there are common cultural codes of values, whether those codes of values are emerging in public relations. And then they look at the code of ethics of 41 professional public relations associations around the world. As part of their research, they identified 6 dominant themes, and those include professionalism, advocacy, moral standards, client's interest, expertise, and relationships. Those should sound pretty familiar. We've heard about those in previous weeks. They probably are very similar to the code of ethics that you may be familiar with within your own organization, or if you happen to belong to a communication association, perhaps the Public Relations Society of America, or the International Association of Business Communicators, or others. There's plenty of associations for which you may be familiar. I also encourage you, when you read that Taylor and Yang article, review the metaphor that they offer. That can be found in figure 3 and the accompanying description just before that. They talk about the idea that ethical public relation practices are similar to a pool of water. And I think that metaphor goes a long way in describing the importance of our public relation ethics and our communication ethics as a whole. Well, that's it for now. Again, make sure you stay ahead with all assignments. That's especially key as we near the finish line, because many of you will be wanting your grades and for me to close out the course, and of course I can't do that until everyone completes their work. So please focus on staying ahead. And I'll go ahead and preview now the fact that we'll be looking for your surveys, your end of course surveys. I'll mention that again next week, but please make sure that you, as soon as you can, get those surveys in. I read every one. They're completely anonymous, and the course that you're enjoying this term is a product of previous surveys. So I encourage you to pay it forward and complete that survey as soon as possible. So in addition to staying ahead with all assignments, as you do every week, I encourage you to stay engaged in the discussion board, and of course, most of all, enjoy this time of learning.